An emergency. A new army is ready to march straight at Putin. No one expected this. Macron has given the order. The Ukrainian Armed Forces are on standby. Swarms rise into the sky and drones pierce the heart of Russia one after another. An unprecedented victory for our side. The Balkans have reinforced their forces and allies are playing their trump cards. Putin clutches his heart as Ukrainian ballistic missiles tear everything apart around him. This is a true spectacle. Italy's secret front. The mission to pressure Moscow has begun. All this in our episode of Infernal Point. At last, the Allies have dared to act. France is leading a well-armed force to the border with Ukraine. Macron's fighters are preparing to break through. This is a breakthrough. Paris is backing Moscow into a corner. The doors to the Mirage aircraft fleet have been opened. Ukraine is being given the best fighter jets. The air defense is already loaded and ready to swiftly deal with the enemy. No exaggeration, a historic moment. The partners have reached a boiling point, resulting in a flood of weapons for the armed forces of Ukraine. Finland and Spain are not lagging behind either. This is a program. The Pearl has flared up to the fullest. Could this very force finally take everything away from Moscow? The ground beneath its feet? More on this in just a moment.
The time has come. France is ready to deploy troops for Ukraine in 2026, announced Pierre Schill, Chief of Staff of the French Army. The statement about troop deployment came after, as mentioned above. The French military leadership has warned of the need to be prepared for a confrontation with Russia in 3 to 4 years. Also next year, the Orion 26 exercises will be held to test the effectiveness of cooperation between different branches of the military, allies, and ministries.
It should be remembered that France and Emmanuel Macron were the initiators of the idea of having foreign troops present in Ukraine. Yes, they did not receive full support from their allies, not even within the European Union. Accordingly, they were urged to abandon this idea. Plus, during the Biden administration, the US said, "We can't be at odds with Europe, but we don't want to be in Ukraine, so let's agree that you won't be there either." But now the situation is starting to change. On one hand, Donald Trump says he does not intend to defend Europe. He doesn't intend to defend NATO allies, then he changes his mind, but for Trump, that's normal. But most importantly, he says that Ukraine is a European problem, so let the Europeans solve it.
Ukraine will soon be able to receive an additional aircraft, a Mirage 2000 from France. The corresponding decision has already been made, reports Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
This is a demonstration that not only the US is helping Ukraine because there was an impression that without the American military, nothing would happen. France says we have Caesars, we have Mirages, we have other military equipment that Ukraine is using effectively, so don't forget about them. And the provision of Mirages is a demonstration that we are in the game.
Experts note that Mirages are a very effective weapon for shooting down the missiles that Russia uses to attack Ukraine.
Because it is our pilots who fly the French Mirages, just as they do the F-16S. When a missile attack occurs, they take to the sky and in the air they intercept Russian missiles and destroy them there. And the Mirages play a key role here. That's why the Mirage is useful. It's not just a demonstration that France stands with Ukraine. It gives Ukraine a better ability to repel attacks, and in the future it could enable certain operations, including on the territory of the Russian Federation.
The UK is stepping in to help our country with air defense. In the future, the country also plans to assist with missiles and production.
Interceptor drones are a type of unmanned aerial vehicle specifically designed to detect, track, and neutralize potential airborne threats. These drones play a vital role in protecting sensitive areas by identifying and responding to unauthorized or hostile aircraft. Their main function is to enhance security and maintain the safety of controlled airspace by intercepting drones or other flying objects that may pose a risk. There will be a war in Europe, specifically with Germany. Since then, the dates have changed, as has the amount of time Russia needs. But the idea that Russia wants to fight with Europe has not gone away. Sometimes Europeans, when they want to emphasize and elevate their own geopolitical significance, mention this existential threat coming from Russia and say that they are even ready to train and send troops to Ukraine.
Spain and Finland have joined the Pearl Initiative, which allows partners to purchase weapons for Ukraine from the US using their own funds. This right over here at this very moment.
This announcement was made publicly by the President of Ukraine, who shared this important information during an in-depth conversation with a group of journalists while he was in Brussels, the capital of Belgium. The President emphasized that this initiative is not limited to European countries alone. Canada, a key ally and partner, is also actively involved as a participant in this comprehensive program. In fact, Canada has on several occasions taken the responsibility to pay for specific separate batches of weapons that were purchased from the United States, demonstrating its commitment to supporting Ukraine. In the context of these international defense arrangements, there is a specific term that is used to describe this kind of financial and logistical cooperation between allied nations. It is a win-win situation. Also,
Finland has announced its contribution of 100 million euros for Ukraine. Earlier, Norway announced additional funding of $200 million as part of the Pearl program. 6 NATO member countries have already financed 4 packages of defense support for Ukraine. These are the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Germany, and Canada. This is a true triumph. Ukrainian forces have delivered a devastating blow to Russia, striking right at the very heart of Putin's military machine. The dam of the Belgrade Reservoir has been destroyed, and now Russian units are drowning in their own quagmire. On the front lines, it's a real hell where our soldiers are breaking through enemy lines meter by meter, reclaiming the land. Putin is raging like a cornered predator, obsessed with new conquests. He's already drawing 4 more regions on the map that he dreams of swallowing up. But the situation is rapidly slipping out of his control, tension is rising, a storm is looming over the empire. You need to hear these shocking predictions first.
The Russian capital is under drone attack for the 2nd time this month. A mobile fire group was even stationed near the Kremlin, probably to guard the main object of Russian military. It wasn't just Moscow. Ukrainian drones visited at least 10 regions of Russia. Even propagandists are acknowledging the attack, writing that the carpet plan was announced at some airports and that there is infrastructure damage in the regions. Drones attacked the dam of the Belgorod Reservoir as a strategically important facility in the war against Ukraine.
They are neutralizing Russian logistics, particularly in terms of supplying material and technical support for the Russian troops conducting operations. Active combat operations are taking place on the territory of the Russian Federation itself, in the Tokor region, Klushkovsky and Tetkinsky districts, as well as primarily against the units of the occupying army in the temporarily occupied territories of the Kharkiv region.
Another victory in pushing back the occupiers. The defense forces have cleared the village of Yahorivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region of Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups, according to the Strategic Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Over the past week, Ukraine's defense forces have liberated a number of settlements. This effectively puts the Russian dictator's plans to create a broad so-called buffer zone in the Dnipropetrovsk region on hold. The use of this factor as an element of military political pressure both on the United States and on Ukraine at the moment when Russia is pushing for an end to the war.
Meanwhile, the chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Valery Gerasimov, reported to the Kremlin leader about the successes of the occupation army in several directions, and about the encirclement of dozens of Ukrainian battalions.
The strategic goal of the Russian army and political leadership is to establish full control over the territory of the Dnipropetrovsk region. All the plans of the Russian command are currently focused on expanding the theater of military operations at the expense of the Sumy, Kherson, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhzhia regions. This is the so-called thousands tactic, a maneuver designed to divert the operational reserves of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine away from the main direction of the Russian strike.
Where Putin and his army are not expected as usual, they use all available weapons against civilians. On Sunday, October 26th, Russian terrorist forces attacked a passenger minibus that was traveling on the highway towards Sumy. According to preliminary information, 5 people were injured, including a minor child. 1 person is in serious condition and has been hospitalized. Putin's worst nightmare is not only Ukrainians but also Russians. The Russian FSB has accused former oligarch Mikhail Khodorkovsky and 22 other members of the anti-war committee of attempting a coup. Khodorkovsky, who is in exile in London,
Independent political existence is impossible without appropriate actions, either by political authorities or accordingly by the Russian special services.
Donald Trump stated that he could very quickly reconcile Afghanistan and Pakistan. The US president also responded to Putin's threats regarding the Burevestnik missiles and advised him not to do so again.
The information about the Burevestnik tests is based solely on statements. The head of the General Staff of the occupying country's army, Gerasimov, made a statement on behalf of the Russian dictator. Moreover, it should be noted that the United States did not deploy the Boeing radiological monitoring aircraft on the day of the tests, nor on the days before or after. This aircraft is used to study the atmosphere for the presence of radioactive substances in the air.
Ukraine is arming itself. Despite the difficulties, the state order for Flamingo missiles will be fulfilled by the end of the year. This was stated by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. In addition, Ukraine is ready to open a plant for the production of Gripens. This week, our country and Sweden have already signed a preliminary agreement for the supply of about 100 Gripens of a new modification. And it seems this is just the beginning of cooperation.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
This is truly impressive. The Balkans are on Ukraine's side. Military aid is already being sent. Columns of equipment are heading out to support our defenders. And in addition, Athens is preparing a powerful move to transfer combat aircraft to Kyiv. The circle of allies is growing stronger, and the armed forces of Ukraine are reaching unprecedented heights. Ukraine is triumphant. Partners are breaking all the rules and are determined to finally bring Russia to its knees. This is just the beginning. What other reinforcements have the Balkans prepared for us? More on this with details in the following report.
Recently, Ukraine received a new significant package of military aid from Croatia. Ukraine and Croatia have also agreed on joint weapons production. Ukraine's Minister of Defense Denis Shmyhal and Croatia's Minister of Defense Ivan Anušić signed a joint letter of intent to deepen defense industrial cooperation.
I thank Croatia for providing 13 packages of military aid totaling over 200 million euros. We expect the 14th aid package soon and the 15th by the end of this year. We also discussed joint participation in the SAFE mechanism and the possibility of Croatia joining the Pearl initiative during the meeting. We are grateful for considering this matter. Denis Shmyhal, Minister of Defense of Ukraine.
Already at the beginning of next year, they will hold a joint industrial forum of defense product manufacturers. Of course, Croatia is most interested in the production of various drones, which have already revolutionized modern warfare. The Croatian side will also assist Ukraine in the matter of demining.
I noted Croatia's role in the work of the demining coalition. The experience of this friendly country is important for clearing our land. The Croatian company Dokiing has already delivered 69 demining machines and has started producing spare parts in Ukraine. Denis Shmyhal, Minister of Defense of Ukraine.
Croatia will very soon deliver American-made M110A2 howitzers to Ukraine, 150,000 units of ammunition and Zuni rockets. This military aid is worth about 100 million hryvnias in total. 199 million euros will be transferred to Ukraine through the Czech Republic. Also under pressure from other NATO countries, Greece may sell part of its fighter jets. Mirage 2000...
Greece has already purchased 24 more modern Rafale fighter jets from France. Considering that technical support for the Mirage 2000 fighters will end in 2027, Greece is looking to get rid of the old ones. However, negotiations with India regarding the sale of these fighters have reached a dead end. Other Balkan countries have also not found any interested buyers. Greece is negotiating with France to purchase another 6 to 12 fighters, Rafale, and is seeking a price reduction in exchange for selling part of its Mirage 2000 fleet.
Now Athens is currently in the process of negotiating with France in order to acquire either another 6 or possibly even 12 additional Rafale fighter jets. A lower price in exchange for selling part of the Mirage 2000S. Currently, Greece has 25 such aircraft in service. The United States is pressuring the country to acquire more weapon systems as part of the priority list program for Ukraine's needs. Therefore, it is only a matter of time before Kyiv purchases part of Athens' Mirage 2000 fleet. Even the partially recognized Republic of Kosovo is helping Ukraine. Pristina has announced the delivery of a new military aid package to Ukraine. The Balkan country is ready to help as much as it can. The details of the aid are not being disclosed. It is known that it includes mortar shells of various calibers, including 120mm, 60mm, and 81mm military trucks, armored vehicles, and tactical vehicles.
We are determined to support Ukraine in every way, according to our conditions and capabilities. Ejub Makedonci, Minister of Defense of Kosovo.
The Minister of Defense of Kosovo posted a video on social media showing the Kosovo security forces and the British Army training Ukrainian soldiers. Eastern European countries and the Balkans are actively assisting Ukraine with various types of weaponry and by conducting training on their own territory. Such support clearly demonstrates their attitude toward the Russian world and Putin.
Thunder over the front line. Our army is no longer just surprising, it is breaking the enemy's plans before the eyes of the whole world. The factories never stop. Assembly lines are producing new weapon systems. Naval drones, long-range missiles, powerful artillery vehicles. All of this is systematically destroying the enemy's resistance. The Kremlin, in agony, is searching for excuses for its failures, but the reality is different. The ground beneath the enemy's feet is crumbling, while the international community applauds our defense industry. What other bold moves is Kyiv preparing? Find out more in the following report.
The Ukrainian defense industry is gaining momentum. Ukraine is becoming a world leader in weapons production.
Europe must help Ukraine become a resilient and formidable steel porcupine that no aggressor can overcome, even in the face of any threat.
The Security Service of Ukraine has demonstrated new Sea Baby maritime drones, which have already been tested in combat. The new Sea Babies are capable of traveling over 1,500 kilometers and carrying up to 2 tons of cargo. 2 versions have been presented. One is equipped with a machine gun mount and a target recognition auto-tracking system. The second is a Grad maritime platform with 10 charges. MLRS.
Our drones have changed the balance of power in the Black Sea and have proven their effectiveness. The new generation of Sea Baby is even more effective. Therefore, the work to clear the Black Sea of the Russian fleet will continue.
In addition, the upgraded drones have reinforced engines and a modern navigation system. Earlier in June 2025, new models of maritime drones were used during the strike on the Crimean Bridge.
We approached by land, we approached across the water's surface, and in 2025 we approached underwater. There were 2 strikes, each with a force equivalent to 1.1 tons of TNT. As a result, its key supports, the so-called piers, were seriously damaged. Essentially, the bridge now operates with a load limit of no more than 5 tons. Only trucks are moving, and it no longer serves any military logistics function at all.
Ukraine's allies are in no hurry when it comes to supplying long-range missiles that the armed forces of Ukraine could use to destroy legitimate military targets of the occupiers. Deep in the Russian rear, there is a story in the Wall Street Journal claiming that the US has allegedly approved Ukraine's use of long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Fake news. The US has nothing to do with these missiles. Kyiv, in turn, has focused on producing a wide range of its own long-range missiles and drones. These are regularly used to strike targets located on Russian territory, especially in recent months. In general,
A nightmare. It's getting worse. Well, damn, wow.
as of today, Ukraine is able to produce on a regular monthly basis dozens of advanced long-range missiles. These include, for example, the long-range Neptune missile system and the Flamingo missile, as well as
thousands of long-range rocket-powered drones targeting Russia's energy system.
Weapons manufacturers have not forgotten about Ukraine's goddess of war either, Bodana. This year, Ukraine became the world leader in the production of self-propelled artillery systems. Artillery remains the queen of the battlefield, and Ukraine has mastered the production of howitzers. Despite the role of FPV drones on the front line, artillery has several advantages over drones. First of all, range of engagement. For the Bodana, this figure is 45 kilometers. Shells are inexpensive and immune to radio interference, and they are also extremely effective against enemy infantry.
The warhead, meaning that these are in fact completely different and distinct capabilities for striking both enemy personnel, enemy equipment, as well as the main points of permanent enemy deployment. If the EPI drone targets a single objective, that is, a specific serviceman of the occupying army, then accordingly the capabilities of the Bodana self-propelled artillery system are to work against the formation. In other words, it is what counters the so-called local assaults by Russian occupiers.
A protracted war and heavy defense require quick and effective solutions from Ukrainian military engineers. While Russian occupiers continue to dream of demilitarization, Ukraine is gradually becoming the world's largest arms forge. It's
hard to believe. The secret mission of Rome. The curtain has fallen and Italian weapons have become a menace to the Kremlin. Precise strikes, powerful support, and a new level of combat strength. Ukraine is entering a phase where the enemy has nowhere to hide. Moscow is in panic because every new aid package from Europe is another nail in the coffin of imperial dreams. Get ready for the shadow assault, armored personnel carriers, Puma, and other systems of deadly precision. All of this is already on its way to support the armed forces of Ukraine. Don't miss the exclusive details about this. The story is coming up in just a moment.
The aid from this country is not being disclosed. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Italy is another partner helping our country in the fight against Russian occupiers. The country has significant experience in producing air defense systems and ammunition for them. A lot of attention is now being paid to the prospects of joint production of these weapons in cooperation with our country. It is necessary
to understand that, after all, any European country that says it is ready to launch the development of military capabilities for the armed forces is important for Ukraine. Because one way or another, the military equipment produced by the European Union will end up in Ukraine. Because many people, not only in Ukraine, but also in Europe, in the European Union, Ukraine, and Europe as a whole, are modeling the situation and saying that after Ukraine, Russia will wage war against other countries on the European continent. Accordingly, more attention needs to be paid to the production of military equipment.
It should be noted that assistance to Ukrainians is being provided against the backdrop of internal political struggle within Italy itself. In 2025, 192 deputies supported aid to our country, while 41 lawmakers voted against it. Nevertheless, at the moment, the Italian government is officially able to support Ukraine and supply weapons until December 31st, 2025. And
different sides are taking, let's say, sometimes opposing positions. We can recall, when talking about the complex and often turbulent nature of political life in Italy, that Salvini was, and indeed still remains, a highly influential and prominent politician in Italy. He is widely believed, and there appears to be considerable evidence supporting this belief, to have or to have had significant ties and connections to Russia. However, at the start of the full-scale war, Salvini demonstratively provided assistance to Ukraine. In principle, he did not behave the way some others did.
according to experts, the Prime Minister takes quite a tough stance.
As of
Today, it is known that Italy is participating in the supply of Storm Shadow cruise missiles to Ukraine, together with the British and French governments. In addition, there have also been deliveries of Puma armored personnel carriers, which the government has never reported in the media or emphasized in official
documents. That is to say, accordingly, Italy, as one of the most prominent and influential leading countries of the European Union, simply cannot afford to stand aside or remain passive. Otherwise, it actually misses out on significant opportunities for growth, development, and collaboration within the Union. In other words, Italy must remain actively engaged and involved in these important processes.
Moreover, Italy has gone even further in supporting Ukrainians and is trying to minimize the purchase of Russian energy resources.
Back in 2022, there was talk that for the first time since 1976, Italy went a week without importing gas from Russia. This, of course, was a very serious step, and Italy took it.
Italy is not as resilient in its informational support for Ukraine as it could be. However, its actions speak about its position on Ukraine better than any words. Experts note that the Prime Minister of Italy also has good relations with US President Donald Trump, which allows her to facilitate communication between the US and the European Union regarding aid to Ukrainians.
That's all for now, folks. This was me, Darina Hatsakalo. Even more scorching news in our next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you